First, let's talk to Gideon Falter. Gideon is the chief executive of the campaign against anti-Semitism. Gideon, very good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
Gideon, welcome to the programme. What does this story tell us about the Labour Party, where it's at today?
Well, as Keir Starmer said at Prime Minister's Questions this afternoon, it's under new management. But I think that there's a really interesting divide that has been highlighted by this episode. If you remember the BBC Panorama programme, it was an absolutely groundbreaking revelation of what was going on inside Jeremy Corbyn's team and within the Labour Party to cover up the institutional Jew hatred that was taking place there. And the Labour Party actually went to court before the programme even aired, trying to, or rather went to the BBC, trying to get the programme not to be aired. Now, the programme was aired. When it did so, the Labour Party put out statements against the staffers who were blowing the whistle on the Labour Party and speaking on the programme. They smeared them. They really dragged their name through the mud. And what's so interesting about today is that Sir Keir Starmer has quite rightly decided not to fight this anymore in court. This was a legal action by the whistleblowers to sue the Labour Party. He decided not to fight it anymore, to apologise, to pay them damages, which is the right thing to do. But what's so interesting about today is that Jeremy Corbyn has now come out from the back benches and said that Labour should have fought this in court, that the whistleblowers really did perhaps have an axe to grind and were making things up, as Labour said at the time. And I think what this shows is that Jeremy Corbyn is at complete odds with the new leader of the Labour Party. And it's time for him, as we've been calling since 2016, to actually face up in a disciplinary proceeding in the Labour Party to what he has done over the past several years, which made so many British Jews feel deeply concerned about their future in this country. And we say to Keir Starmer, now is the time to suspend Jeremy Corbyn and subject him to disciplinary proceedings.
You actually want to see him suspended?
We think so, because we've now seen a pattern of behaviour from Jeremy Corbyn over the course of decades, and that, of course, was largely what started the chain of events which caused the BBC Panorama programme to be made. And we saw his time in office characterised by attempts to silence victims of anti-Semitism, to victimise people like Ian Austin, who stood up to anti-Semitism within the Labour Party. And that is why the Equality and Human Rights Commission ended up investigating the Labour Party with a complainant in that case. And the great danger that we have now is that Jeremy Corbyn is allowed to remain on the backbenches, sniping, gaslighting, spreading these conspiracy theories. He just said a few weeks ago, for example, that the Equality and Human Rights Commission is actually part of the government machine.
Well, that report is still to come, of course. That big report is still to come.
It is, of course, still to come. But what Jeremy Corbyn is trying to do from the backbenches with today's statement, with his statement against the Equality and Human Rights Commission, is to try to suggest that there are sort of malevolent forces at work here, that it's not really about the anti-Semitism, anti-Jewish racism, which was perpetrated during his leadership and which he really enabled. And he's trying to suggest that there's some sort of malevolent force at work here, and that's really dangerous. And Keir Starmer needs to stand up against it now.
Okay, well, there's a statement from Jeremy Corbyn which I'll address very shortly. But he's accused Keir Starmer, former boss of the CPS, of making a political, not a legal decision. But whether it was political or legal, was the action taken today by the Labour Party under Keir Starmer the right thing to do?
Yes, I mean, if you step back to when the BBC Panorama show was broadcast, you've got a few people who are lifelong Labour supporters, who are staffers within the Labour Party, who have been trying to stand up to anti-Semitism within the party. Some of them have been bullied, they said, to the point of considering suicide. And just before the programme is aired, the Labour Party goes after them personally, attacking them, saying that they had all sorts of ulterior motives. And for that to happen required the leadership of Jeremy Corbyn and senior people around him, like Seamus Milne, to go on the attack like that. And it was absolutely abhorrent that they did that. Jeremy Corbyn said in 2017, whistleblowers keep us safe, we can't allow them to be silenced. And apparently, that only applies to whistleblowers that he likes, whistleblowers who stand up to anti-Semitism and expose the wrongdoing in his party he doesn't want to hear from. And so I think, for Keir Starmer to take this action today was absolutely right. There wasn't really much of an option for him. And what will be interesting now is to see what he does about Jeremy Corbyn's actions today.
Gideon, thank you. Gideon Falter, Chief Executive of the Campaign Against Anti-Semitism.